And today I'm really excited about this episode. Today we're talking about basic astrology. I have been studying astrology for over 25 years, and I use it in my intuitive readings almost every time. I think it is an amazing tool to use to help improve yourself, to get to know yourself better, to have a conversation with yourself or self analysis. I think it's a great tool for that. I think it's also a great way to really hone in on what some of your life lessons are, as well as what some of your gifts or tools are. So, good questions you can ask yourself once you've started to learn more about astrology are, am I really meeting the challenges that I'm meant to meet in this life? And then also, am I really using the gifts to their fullest extent that I've been given in this lifetime? So, I think it's very helpful. I'm going to do a lot of shows on astrology, you guys. I'm also doing a workshop on March 18th. If you go to the website withloveandlight.com, I'll be doing a workshop that Saturday on basic astrology at the center in Atlanta, Georgia. So please sign up for that on that website. Today, on this show, it is my goal that everybody is going to have a few basic tools that they could look at their chart and learn some extra things about themselves beyond what we all know, which is, your birthday is your sign. And you look in the newspaper or you look in a magazine and you say, okay, I was born August 15th, therefore I'm a Leo. And then you read that. That is really a very general rudimentary way to engage with astrology. Astrology is so much more detailed and so much more interesting and useful than that. So today I'm going to give you that first layer of being able to really dive in and understand about your chart. And I'm also going to show you guys some basic resources that you can pick up to get you started in your journey on learning about astrology. Okay, the first thing I'm going to talk about are just how to pull your chart, and also what resources, basic resources that you need to have around in order to read an astrology chart. Okay, the first thing I would recommend is to pick up this book. It is called Astrology for Yourself. He'll probably give you a bigger shot than this when this airs. It's by Douglas Block and Demetra George. This is a really great workbook where you can take the basics of your chart and learn how to interpret it. And it really is easy, and it's what I base all my workshops on. So please pick that up. The other thing that I would recommend just for further reading is anything by Mr. Robert Hand. There are lots of great astrologers out there, but Robert Hand is very well known. He's been doing this, I think, since the 70s. And he has a lot of great books about the different basics in astrology. And they're great reference books. So you don't have to memorize everything. You can just pull these books out and refer to it before you've really memorized. Speaking of Robert Hand, how do you pull your chart and what does that mean? When you pull a chart, that means you need your birth time, your birth place, your birth date, and your birth year. That's what you need to pull a chart. And back in the old days, when I say old days, like, 100 years ago or more, actually hundreds of years ago, astrologers would spend just as much time in their training learning how to plot a chart. Thank goodness that we don't have to do that anymore. And we push a few buttons into a computer and then your chart pops up. So thank goodness for me, because I'm not at the best at math. So you can go to a website called astro.com. That is ASTRO.com. Actually, this website was founded by Robert Hand, as well as another very well-known astrologer that I recommend. Her name is Liz Green. And they give you free charts. So you can go on there and you can pull your chart so that you can just start to learn how to read it. So today, I'm going to talk about the basics of a chart, and I'm going to use my chart as an example, which for astrologers out there is essentially showing you a picture of myself naked. This is my chart. This is everything you could ever want to know about me if you know how to read a chart. So I'm just laying it all out there today into cyberspace. But this is what your chart will look like, except everything will be different. But this is the basic format for the charts. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the basics of a chart are. First of all, what is a chart and what is astrology? Let's just kind of start there. You'll notice that you can't really see it, so I'll mark it. An X marks the spot in the middle of these charts. Essentially what a chart is and what the theory of astrology is, and the way I like to say it, when you were born, in other words, when your mother gave birth to you, in that time and space, exactly in that place on the planet, as we all know, we are a part of a great big system of cycles called nature. It's incredible, the universe. Everything moves in cycles to the point where mathematicians and scientists and astronomers plot the movement of the planets, of the sun, of the moons. So everything can be plotted, and I can predict mathematically exactly where everything is going to be 50 years from now and where everything was 50 years ago. So it's when you plug in your birth data, you get a mathematical photograph by degree. I mean, this is essentially a picture, and you can notice all these symbols here. They symbolize all the different planets. Some of them you'll recognize. You know, the moon looks like a moon. Some of them are, a little more unusual. That's the symbol for Jupiter. That's the symbol for Neptune. The big circle here is the sun. But essentially, this is a 360-degree snapshot of the sky. And the day that I was born, January 19th, in High Point, North Carolina, I'm not going to say the year. It was about 25 years ago. Just kidding. All of these, this is exactly where everything was. So your natal chart or your birth chart is that snapshot of exactly when you were born. So the theory of astrology is that moment in space and time where your soul entered your body, entered this physical world when you were born, is like your individual fingerprint. Okay, no two are alike in history or in the future. That is your moment. So this is unique every single time. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, what about twins? Or what about the mother down the hall who gave birth, at the same hospital to someone, 5 minutes later? Yes, you're right. The chart may seem similar, but it is actually to the second and the minute. So it will be a little bit different. But the idea behind this, guys, is that we all have free will. This isn't black and white written in stone. We all have free will, and astrology is more about influences. So we're given our challenges, we're given our personality, we're given our tendencies, we're given kind of our energy that leans one way more than another way. We're all extremely individual, and this gives us a soul mission. There's so many ways we can look at a chart, creative ways we can look at a chart, but really at the end of the day, it's the soul's personality and choice to, as you go through life, go left instead of right. Choose this partner instead of this partner, choose this degree instead of this degree. So all of that unfolds uniquely. So the baby that was born down the hall the same day, the same time, might have a lot of the same influences as you, but they would have had, they call it nature versus nurture. A lot of times their environment could be different. Their family could be different. They could make very different choices than you. But I believe, and I have been doing this for many, 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 many years, there are definite similarities and definite energies and challenges and gifts that I see when I look at charts over and over and over again. And it really is, what are you doing with it? How are you incorporating that into your life and your story? So Today I'm going to talk about the 3 building blocks of a chart. You know, most people know their sun sign, and what that means is, and we'll look at mine. Mine is right here. It's a circle and the sun, and then that's the degree and the minute. Your sun sign is what part of the sky the sun is in over a year, in a 360-degree circle. So if you think about it, if there are 12 signs, which really all a sign is segmenting the circle. 12 parts make an equal circle, 360 degrees. So it really is 1/12 of the population is your sign, which that's what I mean when I say it's very general. So to say that you're like every Leo that was born, 1/12 of the population, doesn't make any sense. And it's why a lot of people, when they first get started with astrology, they kind of blow it off because they go, well, that's kind of me, but that's not really me. Well, it's because it's so general. So we're going to talk about where the sun works in your chart and how to add to that so it can get more specific and be more useful for you. So I call these 3 components the 3 legs of the stool. The sun and where the sun is in your chart, or your birth sign, is 1 leg of the stool. And it's important, but it's only a third important. There are 2 other things that are very important. The other really, really important part of a person's chart is your ascendant. And that is right here. It is noted typically in charts with an AC that means ascendant. A lot of people talk about this with another word. They call it a rising sign. And essentially what a rising sign is, this is why you need the time for a person's chart. This is why I'd like to have the hour or the minute for a person's chart. This is exactly where the Earth was when it was rotating when you were born. So the sun sign is what day the Earth was in its rotation around the sun, right? And then the ascendant is exactly where it was when it was rotating. So there are 12 different signs on the ascendant every 24 hours. So there's roughly 2 hours per sign every day. So that's why this is important. Now, and I'm going to talk to you about what all these mean in terms of your personality in just a minute, but I'm going to get to all 3 first. The other most important leg of a stool in a person's chart is the moon sign. So this is what sign the moon was in when you were born. So between those 3 things, if you learn nothing else today, if you could go to a website, I recommend astro.com, but there are many others, and plot your chart, put in your birth time, your birthday, your birth year, and where you were born, you will be able to pull this chart, and then hopefully by the end of this time, you'll be able to look at these 3 things and maybe put a more detailed picture together about your own astrological chart. So let's talk about what each of these 3 components mean to you. I'm going to start with the ascendant. And, you know, I use this. People who have had a reading by me have heard me say this before. But I like this metaphor. And that is, if you were driving in a car and you're in a neighborhood and you're just looking at houses, when you see a house and it's the first impression that you get of that house, that is really your ascendant. I call it a person's curb appeal. It is your first impression. So if I see a house and it's very modern and austere and looks actually kind of cold and there aren't very many plants and it doesn't seem very approachable, you know, that is one impression I get. When I knock on the door of that house and I go into that house, how that person is living and what that next impression of how that person lives, their mode of living, that's your sun. Your sun is how you live, okay? It's how you do things every day. It's the type of energy that you exhibit when you're doing your life. Okay, it's like what your priorities are. What are my priorities? What are the things that I care about the most in terms of my lifestyle and how I live? That's your sun. Your moon, if I'm in that person, so let's say I walk into this big modern austere house, and then all of a sudden I walk into the house and there's a party going on, and the kitchen is full of yummy food, and it smells great, and there's beautiful music. That's very different than my first impression. So a lot of times people's ascendant can give off a very different first impression than who they really are, and you might need to get to know them. It might be that your ascendant is not very compatible with how you live. So I love people like that because a lot of times what they advertise is not what they're selling. And we all know people like that. And it could be good or bad, but a lot of times it's not congruent. So the third thing is the moon. And the moon in a person's chart is really your most intimate self. It is your love language, and it's also your security and how you get your needs met in that way. So if we're in this person's house and they're having a big party, they could have a bedroom way locked back in the dark hall, and it's locked. There's no way to get in there. They could be, I'm not trying to make fun of Geminis. I actually love Geminis. But it could be a Gemini moon, and guess what? The bed is right there at the front door when you walk in, and everybody's welcome to hang out and have a party on it. So those are people that have very different love languages. Those are people that are have a very different sense of privacy. They have a very different sense of what they need to feel secure and have their own sacred space. So it can be very different depending on the person and the placement of their moon. And there again, what your ascendant is saying over here could be very different than what your moon is about. So once you learn about these three components, it can be really helpful. It can be really helpful in relationships. It can be really helpful with what kind of career you want to choose. It can be really helpful in terms of understanding yourself and knowing yourself. Like at times, why do I feel confused? Or, why, that description doesn't match me, but that matches me. I promise you, if you do your chart in this way, you will have some aha moments. One of the first moments I ever had when I was doing an astrology chart, which made me love astrology, was when I did my chart. And I realized that I was a sun in Capricorn, which I'd always known what my sign was. But I am right on the cusp of Aquarius, so that already gave me kind of an interesting dichotomy, because if you're on the cusp, you're typically borrowing from both signs all the time. You're fluid, you go back and forth. What do they say? Gender fluid? I'm sign fluid. I'm sun fluid. And then when I learned what my ascendant was, everything started to make sense to me. I'm an Aries ascendant. So that kind of moment is really can be really helpful. So let's talk about a few of the ways that a sign can affect a moon and how you can interpret that. So, for example, I am a Taurus moon. If you have a Taurus moon, you are a person who has Taurian traits when it comes to your love language, your sense of security. So what do we know about Taurus? Taurus loves home. So anybody with a Taurus moon needs to have a really stable home environment. Tauruses are ruled by Venus. So what does that mean? All the things about Venus you're going to need in terms of your love language and how you get your needs met and feeling secure. In other words, that's all the senses because it's Venus. So that means your home needs to be beautiful. All the senses need to be okay with your home. In other words, the music needs to be nice. The colors need to be pleasing. It needs to be orderly. It needs to be clean. It needs to smell good. Any of those senses are really important. How do you love somebody when you're a Taurus moon. A Taurus moon is going to be somebody who, loves to cook for somebody. That's how they're going to show you that they love you. They're going to give you nice things. They're going to probably give you things for your home. They love sex. Yeah. Anything about Taurus and a Taurus moon, sexuality is going to be very important to this native. Also, just touching and physical affection is very, very important to a person with a Taurus moon. So let's talk about somebody with a very different moon. Like, let's talk about, I'm going to pick on Geminis again. Again, I love Geminis, but let's talk about a Gemini moon and just how different that is from a Taurus moon. So a Gemini moon is an air sign and it's ruled by Mercury. So what is a person's love language who has a Gemini moon? They are going to want to be able to talk to somebody. They're going to want somebody to be their best friend. They're going to care a lot about somebody who can have a great conversation with them. They're going to want somebody who's not boring. Unlike a Taurus moon people are going to want routine like a Taurus. Geminis, no. If you want to kill a love relationship with somebody and they have a Gemini moon, give them routine, consistency, all of that. The best gift you can give a Gemini moon if you are trying to court them or you're in a relationship with somebody with a Gemini moon, surprise them with a trip. Or give them some sort of vehicle that is fast, like a jet ski or a car or a bike. Give them a Sky Miles number and say, honey, look, Delta card, you can put airplane tickets on it. That's a Gemini gift, okay? What would you give a Taurus moon person? You'd give them perfume. You would give them delicious wine. You would like candles. You would say, honey, I cooked dinner at home tonight. I surprised you with dinner. Let's stay home. A Gemini would be miserable in those environments. So learning what your moon is really important so you can help people that you're in relationship with know how to love you. And also learning, somebody you're in a relationship with, what is their moon, whether it be your child or your partner or your friend or your boss, to really understand what is their language. Because you may be doing what you think would be the greatest thing in the world, but that's not what they think is their best gift. So moons are one of my favorite things to know about in someone's chart. One other thing I just want to say, if you learn about compatibility with different signs, in other words, Taurus is really great with Capricorn, or Pisces is really great with Cancer. If you just know in general what signs are harmonious with each other, if you were wondering if you've met somebody and you want to know, is this person going to be my boyfriend or my girlfriend, or could I ever marry this person? Your sun signs aren't as important to me. It's the moon signs. I would look at the moon signs and see, are they compatible? I've had people come to me for readings and they have the most compatible charts ever when it comes to their sun signs or their ascendants, and their moons are square. And I look at it and I'm like, I get why you guys were attracted to each other, but I bet you're fighting about this, or I bet she gets annoyed about this with you, and it just never fails. So if you're wanting to know more about a relationship, look at the moon sign. Ascendants. Let's talk about that for a minute. The one main thing you want to know about an ascendant, not only is it your first impression, but it also is how you would defend yourself or those that you love in a very dire situation. So what's interesting, I'll give you an example, Aries ascendant, which I am. I am actually a very calm, non-aggressive, very logical person. I wouldn't say I'm passive, but I'm a very logical, calm, thoughtful person. If I am really threatened, or somebody that I love is really threatened, my Aries kicks in, and it's not pretty. I am extremely physical. I I'm the one who will jump in front of the bus. I'm the one who, if somebody gets attacked, I will jump in there and start to fight. Can you believe that? People don't even believe that about me because that's not who I am. But that's what's so interesting about astrology, because my ascendant really tells people that if they care to learn that. So, somebody who could be big and bold and boisterous, they could have a Libra ascendant, and, the minute, things go down, they go up here and they get real calm and they go, wait a minute, everybody stop, we need to think. It's an emergency, let's think, let's come up with a plan. That's somebody who's a Libra ascendant, how they would handle it. I hope that some of these examples help you guys understand how to go to your chart, and the first thing I would do is figure out what sign my moon is in, and then I would think about how that sign might affect what your security needs would be or what your love language would be. And then I would do the same for your ascendant. So go find your ascendant and say, wow, that sign would be more my first impression on people. And also, if I were in an emergency situation, is this how I react? You might be very surprised to know that you are some signs or have a big influence with some other signs than you thought you did, because your sun sign could be very different, and most of the time it is, than your moon sign and your ascendant. So I hope that some of these tips help you guys start to have a conversation with yourself about your chart. It is, I want to also say a little something about astrology. I use astrology in a very intuitive way. It's my hope that when you are working with your chart, that you don't get so bogged down in all the technicalities of it, and that you start to have fun with it and you use it as a tool to have a conversation with yourself about yourself. Because it's a very fun way to, like I said before, start a conversation and a dialogue, and to try to look at yourself and different parts of yourself in a very different way. And that's what I think astrology is so wonderful for. It's really about archetypes. It's about common energies that we all have and we all share. And it's a really fun way to get to know yourself and get to know other people as well. So I'm going to be doing a lot more shows on astrology and all the different ways to read a chart. I'm going to be giving workshops. I'd love to hear your comments. I would love to, if you guys have a show topic, please let me know, because I'd love to do some shows. I'm going to be doing some famous charts soon. My first one is going to be Donald Trump. Thought that would be really interesting. I'm interested. I've barely looked at his chart yet, so I can't wait to see what we can learn from his chart. It's very interesting. Also, if you want to learn more about me, please go to lauraboone.org. That's my website. And I'm also on Facebook on The Real Ethereal Show. And I'm also on Instagram at LauraBoone11, and then also The Real Ethereal Show on Instagram. I thank you guys so much for watching. See you next time.